is a 6-part small essay, and after I say a number, you just give a small clap, okay? Like, so if like we have to practice it. Ready? So
we have to put our drinks
It's a
down.
game.
Although you can clap like this.
Proper drinks. So like I'll say
I'm gonna go.
one.
Okay, clap your hands. Come on, clap your
Great.
hands.
Okay.
Clap your hands. Come on.
All right. Also, can people hear me at this volume?
Yes.
Can people hear me at this volume? Okay. All
Clap your
right.
hands. Say
So
yes.
I'll just go for
Good
it.
job. That's
Just
right.
go for it, girl. So after we found out that Peggy passed, I was thinking a lot about the concept of what awake is, and not in the sense of the ceremony, but in the sense of water. So I'll read the definition of what awake is, and if you think about, if you've ever seen, like, been on a boat and there's a wake behind the boat, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And the wake is the region of disturbed flow, often turbulent, downstream of a solid body moving through a fluid, caused by the flow of the fluid around the body. And that sounds a lot like wake as a ceremony, just in the sense of what a person leaves behind and the rippling effect of how they affect these folks. So consider with me 6 or 5 stages of water. And I have to look at something up on my phone, so just hold on a second.
You always say
That's not yours.
Thank goodness for phones. Yeah, just like all the rest of them.
Who's that? Have you ever seen a lake?
So when we consider awake, we consider the lasting effects and the way that a person who has moved through our lives continues to affect after they've gone. So part 1. Recently, my girlfriend and I were discussing ways in which we should have known that we were gay far sooner. And I was thinking about one where I was like with neighborhood kids. I was thinking about one with neighborhood kids, and we were all girls and we were playing house, and I was like, all right, who's gonna get married? And they looked at me like, what? We're all girls. And I was like, yeah. Who's gonna get married? Like, who's gonna marry me? We're gonna be the ants. Two. Consider that in order to have awake and create awake, we must have a body of water. And there's nothing that embodies Peg, spirit, more than a body of water. The stillness in the morning, the way that if she were to pull you into her life, it was an all-consuming and sustaining care. In her, there was a simultaneous warmth, depth, strength, and current, not, I can't read my handwriting. Just yesterday morning, I overslept for my flight, and the thing that roused me from my sleep was a clear and crisp, stern and guiding voice of Peg saying, "Hannah, get your ass out of that bed and catch your goddamn flight." 4. I think part of what captivated Peggy's heart in the Pacific Northwest was the coast, the ferocity of the waves against the rocks, and the same matter with the capacity for stillness to canvas a sunset or a sunrise on Whitney. 5. Another form of water that comes to mind is the warmth of a steaming cup of coffee, the guiding way it can calm and reset our daily lives, just like 2-hour phone calls with Peggy can do. Grief was led me to my text thread with her a couple weeks ago. And I read through the whole thing, and the texts from me are fiercely and regrettably few, but from her are just like caring words and messages of advice. And maybe she called me a prescription a couple times when I was sick. And then there are two things I want to leave us with. One is my particularly favorite text that I received from her, which I couldn't find it, but I really need to read it because it's pretty funny. And I said, "Hey Peg, I got dumped by that guy." And she said, "It's okay. Go down to the river, take some shit, burn it, throw it in the river, say some stuff, you'll feel great."
That's great. I can just hear it.
And finally, the last thing is that we had planned to FaceTime on the day that she died. And so I said, "I'll call you at this time." And Peg's last word to me was perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Oh, you're Annie's husband.
Yeah. Kathy, are you ready?
Just trying to put the pieces together, okay?
Here's your dad.
Are you ready? That's Patty's
Sure.
Okay, so I'm introducing two people. This is Kathy Hughes Yates and Susie Hughes Gullickson. And they're Peg's two friends from her whole entire life. They went to Immaculate Heart of Mary and Bercy and University of Michigan, and you skipped out on them. But you all
I went to the dark side. Stage.
She went to the fun school.
And then they're also a big reason why Peg moved to Seattle when she graduated from college. So.
And our older sisters used to babysit this group. We're the youngest of 8, so they've got stories as well. Which they're not here.
Yeah.
Which brings us to Peggy growing up.
Okay.
You know, we're all from. Peggy was born in Detroit, Michigan, on a block where we were all Catholic families, and that was back in the day when these women were having lots of babies, and so we lived on the corner, and we had 8 kids, and you guys, the Nichols, lived in the middle of the block, and they had 6 kids, and we were always at Flo and Larry's because she was always home, and she was pretty cool. She let us play inside the house, inside the house, and if we had to go to the bathroom, we could use their bathroom.
Yeah.
Whereas our place was more of a B&B, basement and bushes, So we hung out at Flo's, and it was so great. We already talked about some of the things that would happen. Larry, the doc, he was always gone. He was always gone, but Flo was always there. But when he would come home, Flo would say, we were always in their backyard playing. She'd always say, "Okay, kids, okay, it's time to pick up the yard. The doctor's coming home. We're going to have cocktails." And of course, we were such smart asses. We were going to say, oh, we're not strong enough. We can't pick up the yard. Okay. And then another thing about in the house, they had some famous picture on the wall.
Oh, the naked
And it
boy.
was a horse and a naked boy. We're talking, 5 girls and a boy?
It's a Picasso.
We were all girls. And so here's this, and we come into Nichols' house and we go,
Sit on the steps.
and we say, "What is that?" And then Flo was a doc, and he had all these books. So we would, remember, we could play at their house. We take some of those books and we go underneath the table and Flo, I don't know what your mom was doing, and we're flipping through and looking at all these pictures of dermatology.
I think Peggy knew all the good
elephantitis.
stuff.
Oh yeah, and
Probably had a dog-eared.
it was great. It was great. So we, We had a lot of fun.
National
playing that.
Geographic, right?
Oh God, yes.
Right on.
It was
In the library.
Great fun. Okay, I have to check my notes now too. All right. So we lived a block away from where we also went to school, and I think just our block alone pretty much filled the school of Immaculate Heart of Mary, because we're all Catholic families and they're all big houses with lots of kids coming out. And what was I going to say about that? Anyway,
Was it the money story?
you know, that money story I'd never heard before. That was really good. And by the way, we never got any money. And now that I know, I'm really kind of pissed off. I know what I was going to tell you. Okay, and some of you will know this. You remember we were Catholic. Some of us still are, but
Every Saturday afternoon, what'd we do, girls?
every Saturday afternoon.
Confession. You had to have something on your hair. With a bobby pin.
Right. Oh, I got those somewhere. Oh, here they are.
Hold them out,
We could never. We had Nichols and the Hugheses. Remember, we'd be out there playing. Oh, our moms would say, "It's time to go to confession, girls." And so we'd run home, take our shorts off, put on our little skirts,
Thank you.
dirty, scads, bleeding, and then we'd go down. And as we would walk there, we'd have to talk about our sins.
We had to make them up.
And we'd make it up.
When they're 8.
Peggy's the only one that Peggy understood adultery. She understood. We didn't know. So we'd go in there and say, "Well, we committed adultery 5 times." Oh, it's just, it was hilarious.
Talk to each other because we wouldn't want to repeat the same sin.
Oh yeah! But we want to make it fast so that we can get out of there and get back, take off those stupid skirts and and get rid of our Kleenexes. Okay, so let's fast forward a couple of years, and Susie and I, we're the number 7 and 8 of 7 girls and 1 boy. Okay, Peggy and Kathy were the oldest of 6. Okay. So we went through the older sisters, ratting their hair, Aquanet, and plucking their eyebrows. And it was, I mean, we would watch them and it was like, ooh, ooh. And so we're thinking, no way. Well, these guys found out about it, because we plucked our eyebrows. So I don't know where Flo was, but Peggy got her hands on some Nair. Nair had just come out. And the 4 of us, you remember? Kathy and me and Susie and Peggy were in the bathroom. And Peggy takes out her Nair and she gets very scared, a little bit on. And then she goes to wipe it off, and she wiped off every hair. And Susie and I were saying, we don't think they ever grew back. And she was screaming, and oh, we were dying. We thought it was the funniest.
Most of them never grew back.
No, you're right. She had very
Oh my
fair
God. She had
eyebrows.
the tiniest little eyebrows.
That's why you're there. Oh, you should have heard her screaming. We thought it was hilarious. The other funny story is, I thought that this was a national thing, but the day before Halloween in Detroit was called Devil's Night. And does anybody else here know about Devil's Night?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Devil's Night was, and I don't know, our parents, I swear, they knew what we were doing.
They knew what we were doing. My mom gave us a dozen eggs. She said, don't get caught.
Oh my God! And we would take our bars of soap. So we're going around the block. Remember this? I just remember Peggy. And we're soaping the windows, and all of a sudden, hey, you guys! And Peggy and I, and we start running. And I was running so fast, I don't remember my feet touching the ground. I swear I was flying. Well, check this out. Peggy passed me. She was like the roadrunner. It was absolutely, oh my God. It was hilarious. Okay, the other thing I was going to say, and we've already talked about it, is back then we didn't have cell phones. So we from dawn to dusk we played, and we used to call it a gang of kids, and it wasn't gang in the negative standpoint, even though we were from Detroit, but it was just all the Catholic kids. Oh my God, we were all the same age. I mean, there'd be like 5 and 6 kids the same age, So we played and we played, and we played, and I can't remember what. Oh yeah. So how we would get each other involved is we'd go to each other's houses, and we didn't pull out a phone because we didn't have it, but we'd go, Kathy, Peggy, Kathy, Peggy, come out, and then come out, Kathy, Susie, and then the way that we got called home to dinner, remember? You'd have one of your sibs would be on the street just yelling down the street. Oh, and the last thing I'd like to bring up from childhood is where we used to play. We did play at your house for another reason. My dad was always working really, really hard on the lawn, you know, and it always looked really bad, but he was always working on it. And you guys, your parents, the doctor was never home, so they could care less. We used to play kick the can, remember? Kick the can, and we had gangs of kids, and we were down at your house. You should have seen their bushes. Oh my God, they looked like a deciduous tree in the wintertime. There was like nothing, but Flo didn't care. We were all hiding in the bushes and oh God, it was just so much fun. So that was the kick the can, and Peggy was right out there playing kick the can. We always knew where she was because she was giggling. Giggling and laughing. Oh my God. Okay, and the only other thing I'll say, unless you guys have something else from childhood, is going to Michigan. And Michigan was apparently where all the people who studied a lot, and the girls, they studied a lot and they weren't very good looking. And all the good looking fun people went to state, right? And all we supposedly did was study. Well, and I think I could say the same thing for you. All we did was study. Yeah. Not your sister. She was a year below us in nursing school. And you could hear her all the time. She was always laughing and giggling, hanging out on the first floor. Remember? Yeah. And I'd be trudging off with my books, and here's Peggy. She couldn't even talk because she was laughing so much.
But she got straight A's, right?
Yes, she did. I hated that girl.
I would always lecture Peggy. The next morning, I would hear from the other people, you know, your sister was up all night drinking and smoking, partying, and I'd say, Peggy, you're never going to pass your board. You got to get to that library. And she looked at me and she goes, I don't know, what's your problem? I have to study all the time.
Oh my God! And going up to her room. I remember going up to her room just to check it and see how she was doing. And I'd open up the door, and there would be Peggy all over her bed, and on her desktop be like the Washington Post, New York Times, the Detroit Press. I never saw a textbook in that girl's room. She was always reading. She was just I brought my little props. I almost forgot to show you my props. So when I thought about Peggy and how we would describe her or heart, Peggy had a huge heart. She had so much love for everybody, for the neighbors. I didn't know about the giving out money. She obviously didn't love me very much. But her family, nieces, grandnieces, Sue, oh my God, the girl, and her patients, the people she worked with. So she was, if we were going to look at a body part, Peggy would be heart. She'd also be a big smile. She would walk in the room and it would light up. I mean, it was hard to fall asleep when you go sleep over at their house. Peggy'd walk in and the lights were on. But yeah, her smile. We'll always remember Peggy's smile. And hands. Helping hands. Peggy helped everybody. She didn't know you, but you needed help. She'd help everybody. And she was always giving out advice. And the thing about Peggy's advice, she was always right. And the last one is Peggy was brilliant. And like I say, I never saw her study, but she aced. And not only that, she went back to medical school at 40 and became a doc. And probably the best doc there ever was. She had an insatiable desire to learn. And I didn't know about the poetry, but she obviously was the poetry. You are read that way too. So
she was a celeb. She was on billboards in town.
Oh my gosh!
She was in a bus, right? She was on the back of a bus. Really?
I just saw Peggy go drive by. So that was Peggy.
My mom, Flo, said she knew Peggy was famous when she saw the picture of the bus.
When she saw the picture of the
I was
bus.
driving behind the bus, and I'm not paying any attention, and then all of a sudden I look at the bus.
God. Good old Peg.
She never mentioned anything. Thank you. you, Kathy.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having us. And Sue, thank you so much for having just the ability to have us all come and spend this time. Thank
Okay,
you.
you guys, pizza's probably cold.
All right. That's all right. It's always good, no matter what.
I'm not done yet.
Who are you?
So I've known Peggy since 1978, and she was just so special to me. There's a couple things I want to just tell you. So probably because I hadn't known her very long, but she felt safe with me. But when Debbie still lived in Ballard, Peggy and I were sitting on a bench and we were at a party, and she said, "I just want you to know that I'm gay." And I said, "I just feel so blessed that you would feel safe telling me that." And so it wasn't for years that probably it was really common knowledge, but I really felt blessed that she would feel so safe to tell me that story. And then another thing that I want to say is that I got lots of postcards from her when she was not living in Seattle. And I said one day, "I just love all those postcards." And she said, "Well, you know, you're at the beginning of the alphabet because I'm a B." And she said, "I start at the beginning, and then I always kind of fizzle out, so you're lucky because you're at the beginning of the alphabet." So I was so happy. I was happy to be at that.
I didn't get many postcards.
Right, to be a B.
I'm peeved.
And then,
Tell her.
the other thing I want to say is that when we were coming over here tonight, we told our Lyft driver that we wanted to listen to Beatles music, and they played "Here Comes the Sun."
Aw.
And we just said, that is so perfect because Peggy was just the sun for all of us. We loved her so much.
Thank you.
And Hannah, I've got to tell you, because you not understanding why your friends wouldn't want to be your wife. So I remember the night Peggy was over. My husband and I were living in sin before we were married, and I know we were all going out, and she told me that night she was gay, and I said, "Well, yeah,
Duh.
no big deal." You know, we kind of knew that. It was fine. So I don't know if it was 78 or 79, but yeah, it was great. It was great. Who she was.
Absolutely. Well, and I have to say, I can't remember when, she told me about being gay and Sue and whatnot. It's almost like I felt like she was afraid to tell me, and that actually kind of hurt a little bit. I said, "Peggy, first of all, yeah, and who cares anyway?" And I just felt that she was I felt like she was a little bit afraid to tell me. And that was part of just Peggy. It's like, I love you so much. It doesn't matter. And we all know anyway.
Exactly. It was like,
we all
yeah.
knew before she was willing to tell us.
That's right.
Thank you guys. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. And your roses.
Oh my goodness.
Thanks for sharing your roses. You're beautiful.
Now, you guys
All right, pizza.